Greetings, policymakers. My name is Chin Chuen, and I stand before you with an important message. Imagine a world ravaged by the dreadful effects of global climate change. The livelihood of people is constantly threatened by floods, droughts, hunger, and epidemics. The survival of numerous species of plants and animals are jeopardized as conditions become exceedingly unfavorable. This dismal outlook for our future is indeed depressing and inevitable as we continue to release large amounts of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. Unfortunately, little has been done to overcome this problem, and as we continue to procrastinate, precious time is wasted. The solar irradiance levels in the past 30 years have remained within a stable range. Should the intensity of the sun be directly related to the changing climate, it is expected there would be a correlation between the rising temperature and the irradiance levels. Rather, it is clear that the carbon dioxide levels within the atmosphere is strongly correlated to the rising temperature. The famous hockey stick diagram shows that the current rate of increase in temperature is unprecedented in recent history. This rise in temperature coincides temporally with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, which marked the start of significant anthropogenic emission of carbon dioxide. Many other evidence also support the fact that climate change is largely anthropogenic in nature. We are the ones causing the suffering. We must do something about it. For any country, economic growth is very important, and it serves as an indication of the country's status in the global arena. Participation in the mitigation of climate change usually takes a backseat, as investments are preferably channeled towards economic expansion. It is projected that economies around the world will face a certain predicament once carbon dioxide concentration rises above a critical threshold. Extreme weather and rising sea levels are two major aspects of climate change that can cause tremendous damage to factories and farmlands, adversely affecting production of food and raw materials, and ultimately, the global economy. A higher incidence of diseases will cripple the working force and impose a heavy burden on the nation. Certainly, global warming does not bode well for the future of any country's development. It has been estimated that countries will suffer an overall direct economic loss of 1% of national output when carbon dioxide emissions doubles from the pre-industrial levels. That is almost $200 billion per year for the United States, according to its 2011 Prices in National Income. If the warnings continue to go unheeded, all countries will eventually face the wrath of climate change. The effects of climate change are already felt in many parts of the world and will continue to impact Earth even if carbon dioxide emission plummets successfully. Before the effects of climate change become irreversible, every country has a part to play in protecting our only home for future generations. Inasmuch as the best strategy is to stop all emissions immediately, we know that this is impossible in light of our desire for societal and economical progress. To combat climate change, we need to focus on an abatement strategy that addresses the adaptation and sustainability aspects of climate change without compromising the country's economic progress. The issue of climate change is unfortunately multifaceted and complex. The complete arrest of global emissions alone cannot alleviate climate change, as surface temperature is projected to rise by 0.6 degrees Celsius regardless. Our relentless desire for economic expansion will continue to drive uncontrolled carbon dioxide emissions. According to the Kia identity, the amount of carbon dioxide released is linked to our economic growth. Certainly, no country is willing to employ drastic measures to reduce emissions at the cost of GDP growth. The ideal alternative is to achieve a balance between domestic output and environmental conservation. A global increase of temperature poses a multitude of problems. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or commonly known as IPCC, has compiled and categorized them into water, food, ecosystems, coast, and health. The impacts of climate change are documented over a range of 0 to 5 degrees Celsius rise in temperatures. Food, water, and coast, which represent the fundamental necessities for survival, are expected to deplete as weather patterns become more extreme and erratic with increasing global surface temperatures. Similarly, the health of people is predicted to be overwhelmed by the onset of malnutrition and diseases, affecting work productivity. The pursuit of economic growth without regard for the environment is detrimental to survival in the long run. The dangers we face from climate change are real and destructive. Undeniably, we need to introduce mitigation measures that can reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. This can be achieved by lowering our reliance on fossil fuels and adopting green technology. At the same time, we also need adaptive technology to help us cope with the unavoidable impacts of a changing climate. The crux of an effective abatement strategy is to address the cause and effect of global climate change, with minimal impact on the country's economic progress. Our abatement strategy focuses on two core aspects: sustainability and adaptation. Sustainability encompasses the use of clean and renewable sources of energy, and the adoption of green technology to ensure minimal energy wastage. Adaptation measures will ensure that we are sufficiently protected from the imminent dangers of a climate change that threatens to consume our land and homes. For many countries, economic growth is likely to take precedence over environmental concerns. Here, this abatement strategy strives to ensure that the implementation and investment in these green technologies does not come at the cost of any country's economy. With that in mind, our reliance on non-renewable sources of energy is unsustainable and is chiefly responsible for global emission of carbon dioxide. Particularly, photovoltaic technology can be exploited for its ability to convert solar energy into electricity, with zero carbon dioxide emissions. Similarly, other renewable technologies that utilize wind and hydro energy are carbon dioxide free. These industries are worth billions of dollars and can create millions of jobs as they continue to expand. The cost for the setup of these green technologies may be high, but they're eventually recouped in the long run. Furthermore, with a stable and sustainable energy source, not only is carbon dioxide production reduced, there will be constant improvement in the development of the country and livelihood of its citizens. Another area of development includes the replacement of an older and inefficient system with newer energy-efficient technology. In particular, the use of LED lights and fuel-efficient vehicles can each generate savings of approximately $80 per ton of carbon dioxide emissions. This is possible because the same amount of energy can deliver better output. Taken together, the implementation of green technology paves the way towards a bright and sustainable future. One recent example is a zero-energy building in Singapore, whose array of solar panels can generate 207,000 kilowatts of electricity annually and be self-sufficient with as little as 3 hours of sunlight. In 2009, the photovoltaic industry generated $38.5 billion in combined revenues globally, with projected increases to at least $46.3 billion by 2014. Indeed, participation in this expanding industry will play a major role in economic development in both developed and developing countries. The adverse effects of climate change are a cause of great worry. As a consequence of rising sea levels due to melting ice caps and the thermal expansion of seawater, up to 46 million people in flood-prone areas may be displaced. This is further aggravated by the increased frequency of storms. Such an issue can be avoided by constructing flood banks and storm-resistant infrastructures. Droughts also pose a serious problem to food supply and health. In the United States alone, 1,100 counties are experiencing ongoing water shortages as a result of climate change, are facing poor access to clean water and agricultural produce. Surely, drought conditions in other less developed countries will be as bleak. It will be important to improve irrigation systems and build more water reservoirs to ensure adequate water supply. We strongly propose that more support can be directed towards research, which could essentially contribute to the economy at the same time. The IPCC projects that human population will likely level at 9 billion. At our current rate of carbon energy consumption, we will expect a 4 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures, with a certainty of 66% to 90% by the end of the 20th century, which is typical of the A1FI scenario. Conversely, if we strive towards a greener way of life, we will observe a 2.5 degrees Celsius rise that is represented by the A1T scenario. Since the increase in temperatures is unavoidable, a slower increment is essential for delaying the more severe effects of climate change, preserving the lives of many as well as our future generations. The abatement strategy we propose are designed to achieve the outcomes of A1T, in which participating countries stand to benefit greatly both in the short term and long run. If we continue to pursue unabated economic growth and unchecked carbon emissions, there will be consequences that we will have to live with. Let us now not work simply towards an arbitrary carbon dioxide level, and instead, let's cooperate more and implement our abatement strategy that is devoted to sustainability and adaptation without hindering economic advancement. Let's perform a change and keep our planet sustainable for future generations to come. Let's wake up and take action now.